What's going on, everybody? JHow here, and in this Diablo 3 video, we're going to talk about the Wizard Frost Hydra build in Season 22. Right now on the PTR, there are several Wizard builds that are actually performing very well. This is one that I actually like myself, and we're going to talk about how to set this up, all the skills you'll need, as well as the gear and how it's all going to function. So let's get into it. All right, first up, Spectral Blade with Barrier Blades. Each cast is going to give you a protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs 4% of your life and damage. It's going to be very important because you are going to be trying to keep shields up permanently. Some of you might be familiar with a build like this, but it's all about shields, shields, and shields, which is why we're going to look at Storm Armor with Shocking Aspect. Shocking Aspect isn't so much a shield so much as pairing it with something you're going to put in the cube is going to make sure you take a lot less damage. It's going to make sure that you can keep those shields up. As far as our next talent goes, this is the flexible one, Teleport with Safe Passage. This says after you teleport, you'll take 25% less damage. So you have the mobility, and I like this a lot. However, there have been some adjustments that we've seen from other players. Most notably, for certain people that are trying to push, they've actually gone into Explosive Blast with Chain Reaction, but I still am a big fan of Teleport in this range. Next up, the damage starts to come in. Your Hydra with Frost Hydra. This is going to be buffed by so many different things with your gear that we'll get into it in just a second. Then Blizzard with Apocalypse. Yes, getting the extra radius on this is going to help out quite a bit to make sure and bring down the Blizzard. It's going to pair very well with your Hydra and bring a lot of damage. Lastly, Magic Weapon with Deflection. When you perform an attack, gain a protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs 4% of your life and damage. Sounds familiar, to make sure that you get bonus damage, but also, well, more shields, because that's a lot of what you're doing here with this. So getting the Magic Weapon, the Spectral Blades, they pair very well together, and we'll get into more of that with the gear. With your passives, Audacity, you deal 30% additional damage to enemies within 15 yards. You will be in melee range, getting those Spectral Blades off, giving you lots of extra damage. Also, Arcane Dynamo, when you cast a signature spell, you gain a flash of Insight. After 5 flashes, your next non-signature spell deals 60% additional damage. Your Spectral Blades, you will be increasing your attack speed, so that means very fast attacks, which means proccing this frequently. Next up, Illusionist. When you take more than 15% of your maximum life and damage within 1 second, the cooldown of, well, your teleport in this instance is going to be reset, which is why I like teleport. It gives me more mobility and allows me to be very active with the Illusionist here with teleport to make sure and try and prevent some of those unnecessary deaths or just repositioning to get into a safer spot to use those Spectral Blades. Lastly, Galvanizing Ward. As long as you have not taken damage in the last 5 seconds, you gain a protective shield that absorbs the next 60% of your life and damage. This goes into the notion of I'm getting shields, shields, and more shields between Spectral Blades and my Magic Weapon and a lot of other things that are going on, so that way I'm not taking the physical damage, the actual health damage, and therefore I'm making sure that Galvanizing Ward is going to be procced as well, because all of my shields will do all the absorbing, thus giving me Galvanizing Ward as a reward. All right, let's talk about the gear, because this is where things really start to come together, and there's a lot more. With Season 22, there's another Kanai's Cube slot, which means that you can be a little different with some of our builds, and I think we're going to see more builds. So if you haven't already followed the channel, make sure and hit that subscribe button below for any updates that might come within Season 22 if you are playing within the season. Now for this build, it's obvious you're going to be running Typhon's Veil. Set bonuses include double the duration of Hydras and increase the number of heads on multi-headed Hydras by 2. Damage taken is reduced by 8% for each Hydra head alive. Each time you take damage, a head dies. A head cannot die more than once every 2 seconds. Going into the idea that you're having shields, shields, and more shields, the heads will be up for quite some time, meaning that this is going to be very impactful when we start talking about some of the other gear with it. And then the Hydras deal 200% increased damage for each Hydra head alive, and you'll be running maximum of 10. Going to make this very easy to do a lot of bonus damage as a result. As far as your weapon goes, the Fragment of Destiny or the Serpent Sparker, whichever is better. The passive, the secondary on these are kind of what brings it together. Of course, an ancient or a primal one is going to depend on which one you might run, but a Fragment of Destiny, the secondary, says your signature spells attack 50% faster. Going back into the notion that you're hitting Spectral Blades out there, having this either on or in the cube means that you attack faster, which means you proc it faster. You do deal bonus damage. It also is going to buff your Hydras. You gain a Spectral buff whenever you land an attack with a signature spell. Hydras deal bonus damage from 20 to 30% increased damage for each stack, maximum of 10 stacks. You attack fast, you get shields, and you get a buff that's going to help your Hydras out. The Serpent Sparker, the bonus on that says you may have one extra Hydra active at a time, and they deal up to 300% increased damage, which is why the Fragment of Destiny or the Serpent Sparker, if you have one that's ancient, one that's not, then you kind of would use the one that does more damage, but at the same time, the secondary on these can also determine which one you use. You'd like to have max stats on both. If you have one that's a low roll and the other one's a high roll, you would put the high roll, wear it, and put the low roll in your cube so that it does get the max. A couple of keynotes on this is that bonus damage, intelligence, and yes, attack speed are actually good. Getting those Spectral Blades hitting very fast means that you keep your shields up, so attack speed is very important for this gear. Going back to your set bonuses as well and your set pieces, on your gloves, attack speed is also going to be important there. And then Hydra damage on your shoulders and your chest can also help boost your damage by quite a bit. A few things that you can add to your damage while not worrying about some of the other builds that you might see on other characters that are based around cooldown reduction and all this stuff. This is attack speed, and make sure in getting that Hydra damage to make sure and do maximum damage. For your offhand, the Winter Flurry. Enemies killed by cold damage have a 25% chance to release a Frost Nova. Your Hydras deal up to 150% bonus damage to enemies in a blizzard, which is where the blizzard came from earlier. So you're going to put your Hydra down and your blizzard to make sure and proc this to do bonus damage. The cool thing about this, with another item you're going to have on the cube and this item, enemies killed by that have a chance to release a Frost Nova. Freezing things in an area and chaining those kills over and over means that you're also going to be taking less damage, which means a lot more bonuses for you as a result. To say, hey, I don't take damage, my shields are holding everything, everything's frozen, so it allows you to be very aggressive with this build. For your belt, it should be no surprise, the Shame of Delzir. Your signature spells attack 50% faster and restore 9 to 12 arcane power. You're going to be attacking super fast, so the secondary is not as impactful on this one, but it does get you that arcane power back that you'll need, but it also means you're attacking faster. If you haven't already picked up on this, the faster you attack, the more shields. Yeah, we've said it about 20 times, but let's really hammer it home. When it comes to shields as well, Ashnagar's Blood Bracer, your bracers increase the potency of your shields from 75 to 100%. The higher the secondary on this, the better. You want to have cold skill damage, crit chance, int, and vitality, but the secondary getting that close to 100% or max roll is going to help you out quite a bit to make sure those shields do quite a bit. When it comes to the jewelry, the Convention of Elements works just fine here. Making sure to get that occasional proc is going to help a lot. Also, Squirt's Necklace. Shields have been the name of the game. While not taking damage, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%, and damage taken is increased by up to 50%. So getting a lot of shields means that more damage, you're not taking damage. Doing 100% bonus damage with Squirts can be very good. Getting perfect rolls on this can be hard, but getting cold damage, crit chance, crit damage, and a socket can help out quite a bit. But getting anything with a socket, crit chance, and crit damage is going to be good. And getting that with intelligence or finding some way to get that damage there. But Squirt's Necklace works out very well. And then your other ring is actually going to be a Unity. If you are running solo, a Unity is going to work. You put one on you and one on the Templar. Life is easy, life is good. You split the damage, you take less damage, and therefore you're going to do more damage. As a result, you're going to have a lot more survivability. You do get bonus increased damage against elites, which doesn't hurt either. So we already talked about in the cube, the Fragment of Destiny or the Serpent Sparker, depending on which one has a better roll. One of them will be in the cube, one of them will be worn. In the armor slot, Tasker and Theo increase attack speed of your pets by 50%. Your Hydras count as the pets. The faster they attack, the more damage they do, and life is good. For your ring slot, the Halo of Karini, you would take 80% less damage for 5 seconds after your storm armor electrocutes an enemy more than 15 yards away. This is going to be really good with the storm armor that you're going to be wearing, taking 80% less damage. Never a bad thing. making sure to have that there. Lastly, with the flexibility of this build, the Magistrate is going to fit into that extra slot. Your Hydras now periodically cast Frost Nova and deal 300% increased damage. So with the Season 22 buff and having the extra Kanai Q slot, this is where the Magistrate and Tasker and Theos can both be used to do the bonus damage, to get the extra damage from the Hydras, as well as the attack speed on all of that. Now all of a sudden make this build a lot more viable. You can do a lot more with this as a result. So having this extra slot is actually pretty cool and is going to help this build out a ton. When it comes to your legendary gems, it should come as no surprise. The Bane of the Trapped to deal bonus damage to things that have control and parrying effects against them. Going to work out very well. You're running Greater Rifts. Bane of the Stricken is where it's always going to be at. Bane of the Stricken, very strong. And then also the Enforcer, increase the damage of your pets, and your pets conceivably take less damage, but it's all about your pets doing bonus damage. And so getting the Enforcer as that other legendary gem now means that you are really heavily based around these Hydras and shields, and that's where a lot of your damage is going to come from as a result. So take no damage, get in there, put down your Hydra, throw a Blizzard out, and then all of a sudden everything around it's going to start freezing. Try and group stuff up as much as possible, but make sure that you are keeping your shields up as much as possible. If you do not have shields up, you will be one-shot by everything at high Greater Rifts. Now, if that does happen, the best way to do this is to make sure you put your deflect on, and then you make sure and put down a Hydra where you want to be. You put a Hydra down, it's going to release that Frost Nova, freezing the things that you can now blink into, use that teleport to get onto, use your Spectral Blades to get those shields up to targets that are frozen that can't hit you, and that way you can kind of get back going. If you're a hardcore player, well, you're laughing at what I just said. If you're a softcore player, you're probably going to need to do that at some point, because you'll just push the limits until you can't anymore with zero repercussions. A couple of quick notes before we close this out. In your gear, having the intelligence gem on your pants and chest are good. Since cooldown reduction is completely irrelevant, make sure and put that purple gem into your helm for that bonus life to try and survive as much as possible in case you do get those shields pop through. That's going to do it for this Diablo 3 Wizard Guide here for Season 22 using the Frost Hydra. Let me know in the comments below what you're going to be running, or whether you just like some of the other builds that are going. And make sure and keep a lookout for other builds on the channel as well. So make sure, again, to subscribe and let me know what you think about everything going on as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.